Apostasy by Deydralinne. Chapter 5. House Rules. There was an alarming amount of clothes in her new wardrobe, a whole section dedicated to evening gowns alone. It took her far too long to find a simple shirt and some jeans. Ginny was sprawled out on her bed, gazing out the French doors to the view beyond when she returned. Comfortable? More so now that you're here, Ginny smiled. Hermione nodded. Yeah, it is a lot, isn't it? Ginny frowned. More than I expected. It feels almost a little too easy? Hermione nodded. Yeah, I know what you mean. I doubt the group downstairs would do anything untoward and risk upsetting Baldy, but I don't think we should sleep separately tonight, just to make sure. Ginny sat up. I was going to suggest the same thing. Keep our wands at our wrists at all times. Hermione nodded again. Most definitely. They managed to make their way back down the staircase without getting lost. Ginny seemed confident in where she was going, so Hermione happily followed her. And as they were passing by a large modern sitting room, they stumbled across everyone else lounging about. Ah, they have returned, Theo called loudly. Hermione and Ginny altered their course and stepped into the sitting room. There was a large stone fireplace surrounded by modern white couches, and in the corner was a minibar. Surrounding the room were even more arched windows. The view beyond was more secluded than the rest of the château had been. Instead, they looked out onto a small gathering of green trees. On the L-shaped chaise sofa sat Blaise, Draco, and the two women who had been missing earlier. Daphne Greengrass lounged in her blue pinstriped suit, her long blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. In one hand, she had a martini, and between her legs, leaning against her, was Pansy Parkinson, looking even more striking than the last time Hermione had seen her. She had really grown into her features now, looking every bit a supermodel she had always pretended to be. Her hair was still styled in a short black bob, and her flowing red floral dress fell around her tanned and slendered legs. Granger, Weasley, Daphne smiled tightly. What a surprise to see you two. I'm sure the shock of it will wear off soon, Greengrass, Ginny said sharply. Pansy scoffed a laugh. Play nice, you lot, Astoria warned. She was lying with her head in Theo's lap on the matching four-seater couch. Despite her warning, the younger Greengrass sister had an amused smile on her face. Draco wore a matching grin, but remained silent, a glass of what looked to be whiskey in his hands. Would you ladies like a drink? Blaise offered. Your generosity continues, Hermione drawled, giving a half curtsy before meandering over to the bar to investigate. What's generous is that you're both still alive, Daphne stated, her tight smile still on her face. Her eyes darted between Ginny and Hermione. You're welcome to try to rectify that if you take issue with it, Greengrass. Ginny matched the blonde's tone and smile. Hermione eyed the eldest of the sisters cautiously from where she stood at the bar, pouring herself and Ginny a drink, each after a quick wave of her wand to check for poisons. Daphne's smile grew wider, reaching her eyes this time. Hermione was ready to jump in if need be. She was confident that their rings would protect them against spells, but if someone pulled a knife, it might be game over if she couldn't react quickly enough. Hermione returned, handing a glass of amber liquid to Ginny. Pansy was smiling as she fiddled with her nails. And risk a repeat of what happened at the Dark Lord's Manor? Daphne asked. I'm not as daft as Bella. Thanks for the offer, though. Ginny shrugged. Well, if you change your mind, you know where we'll be. Oh, this is going to be fun, Pansy said, her voice filled with mirth. Daphne's spare hand snaked around Pansy's wrist. It was intimate, loving. Oh, Hermione realized they were a couple. Indeed, Theo mumbled. If you lot are finished, shall we discuss the rules? Are you always such a stickler for rules, Zambini? Hermione leveled him with a stare. Is that your thing? You get your jolly off on rules, like being told you're a good boy, too. Rules keep us all safe, including you and Red here. Did they all communicate through smiles? Hermione scoffed a laugh. Nice try. Me and Jen keep each other safe. But carry on. What rules do you have for us? Everyone stared at the two of them standing in front of the fireplace for a minute. You know, this is only going to truly work if we trust each other, right? Astoria asked more seriously than any of them had been so far. Tor, Daph warned. Hermione cocked an eyebrow at Astoria. She liked the girl enough so far. She was infinitely better than the broads at the order base they had been stationed at. Trust is earned, not given. Can you honestly tell me that none of you aren't even a little suspicious of us and how we have managed to move into your home in a single afternoon? That the thought that we might creep into your rooms in the middle of the night and slit your throats hasn't crossed your mind? We have honest intentions and motives for being here, but it doesn't mean I would trust a single one of you to keep me and Ginny alive if it came down to us or one of you. Just like you should know without a shadow of a doubt that if it were a choice between saving Theodore or Ginny, I would choose Ginny every time. She could tell by the looks on their faces that they agreed with what she was saying. Tell me I'm wrong. You're not. Daphne sipped her martini. But for the record, you wouldn't make it to our bed to slit our throats, Granger. Hermione mirrored her smile. Guess we'll have to wait and see then, won't we? Theo chuckled. Fucking hell. You're not here to make friends, are you, Granger? Okay, let's carry on, shall we, before we get ahead of ourselves, Blaise sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Rule 1, we don't fight in the house. If you have an issue with someone, there's a separate dwelling that has been converted into a training center. You can get in the ring and knock each other around or duel each other until it's out of your system, with the obvious exception of life-threatening spells. But you do it there. There's even an outdoor sparring mat if you prefer, but it does not happen in the house. Are we clear and in agreement so far? Hermione tilted her head and examined his face. He was saying that Hermione and Ginny both had permission to go round for round with any of them, except Astoria. That much had already been made clear. There would be a reason for that Hermione would figure out eventually. Granger, has anyone told you that you're kind of terrifying, especially when you're thinking? Your eyes go all wide and unblinking. Makes it look like you're plotting a murder. There's no double meaning or hidden agenda. The rules are as stated. They aren't a code to break. Pansy sighed. Many people have told her exactly how terrifying she is. Fine. We agree with your first rule. Any others? Ginny responded. Granger. Hermione frowned at him. Yeah, fine. It should go without saying that if Ginny agreed to the rules, then Hermione would abide by them too, and vice versa, but she supposed they hadn't seen the duo for long enough to figure that out yet. Rule 2. Unless given permission in the circumstances, stay out of everyone's room, and we will extend the same courtesy, which means that any midnight throat slitting will need to be cleared with the room's occupants first. Ginny snorted into her drink at the notion. Fine, Hermione sighed, with all the false inconvenience she could muster, pulling smirks around the group all around. Rule 3. You may see some things in this house regarding Astoria. The entire group stiffened. I don't know what happened today, and right now I don't want to know, but what you see does not go beyond this house. You tell no one outside of this room, and you do not discuss any of it outside of this house. Blaise had grown so serious he was actually intimidating. Hermione could see the fear hidden deep in the depths of his eyes. Hermione looked at Astoria's face, trying to get a read on her. Whatever it was that Blaise was referencing to, it pulled no emotion from her. However, her husband looked as though someone had stabbed a knife in his chest. Granger, red, Draco growled in warning. Yeah, sure, whatever, Hermione waved in his direction dismissively. Theo looked up at him and caught her analyzing him. His brows pulled together and his eyes darkened. Granger, Draco warned again. She blinked her attention to him. I already said yes, she stated again, more defiantly. Red, what's wrong with her? Theo straightened a little. Oh, stop it, Astoria snapped at him. It's a valid question after the way you lot worded that. Tor, Daphne stated. Astoria ignored her sister and looked Ginny in the eyes. I'm dying. I inherited the green grass blood curse, unfortunately. And some days it means I'm rather unwell. Some days I'm fine. I still have a few good years left, but everyone tends to fuss over me. And if you want total transparency, I can be rather spoiled for it. I wanted a house in France that belonged to all of us, so we live here. I wanted to remodel the house and modernize it, so we did. Hermione was watching Theo again. Halfway through Astoria's speech, he had become aware of it and glared back at her. Hermione saw it, though. It was too late. He still had hope to save her. Thank you for sharing that, Ginny said, sounding really empathetic. I agree with your rule. Carry on. Rule 4. We eat dinner together every night, that our presence is not required elsewhere. You may help yourself throughout the day, but dinner is a sit-down affair. And you want to extend that rule to include us? Hermione asked in disbelief. The looks on the Slytherins around her didn't align with the rule being imposed. As I said, I tend to be indulged an awful lot, Astoria explained. It's always been my rule for the house, and yes, I'm extending it to you. Fine, Hermione and Ginny answered simultaneously. You apparently negotiated room to do your experiments during your discussion with the Dark Lord. We will convert the old garden shed into a room for you. I won't take the risk of you blowing the house up and killing us all, so in short, no experiments in the house, Draco stated. Hermione scoffed. What kind of experiments do you imagine I'm doing? Agree to the rule, Granger. Fine, Hermione laughed. No experiments in the house. You are guests here. If you want to go out, we will find a way to accommodate it, but you don't go out without at least 2 of us at all times, Blaise stated seriously. Fine. Are there any rules you have for us? Theo asked, his facial expressions and voice still a little stiff. You don't get to take our wands without permission, ever, Ginny said in a surprising level of seriousness. Ginny herself had actually never had her wand confiscated, but Hermione had several times, and then, of course, Ron had snapped her old wand only a week ago. No one said anything for a moment. Ginny folded her arms, gearing up to fight about it if need be. We wouldn't take your wands from you, Pansy said softly. We might disarm you if you were attacking one of us, but we wouldn't take your wands in the capacity that you're stating. Then agree to the rule, Ginny pushed. Fine, I agree. Pansy was looking at them in a pitying manner that Hermione didn't like. Ditto, Daphne said into her drink, and the other 4 continued with a series of confirmations. Anything else? Blade asked patiently. Total honesty around missions. Don't try to do us favors by skimming details to save our feelings. We knew what we were signing up for. Don't bother with hiding details about who is killed, when, or what safe houses are taken down. If it's not clear by us giving up our own safe house, we don't care. We want in on it all, not being left out, to spare our presumed heartache, Hermione challenged. Another round of confirmations. Hermione and I are a team on the battlefield. Do not get in the way of that, Ginny demanded. Fine, anything else? Hermione looked at her best friend, her eyes boring into hers, a small tilt of Ginny's head to the side. Hermione scrunched her nose, and Ginny cocked an eyebrow. Hermione tilted her own head, and Ginny pursed her lips. Through those actions, they had an entire conversation. We want all those rules in binding written agreement. We all sign it. Ginny turned back to the group, and the group who were staring at them with various levels of amusement again at their communications. Well ahead of you, Blaise waved his hand, and parchment materialized on the coffee table in front of them. Touch the tip of your wand to the paper, and it will be taken care of. The paper floated up and began to circle the group, starting with Daphne and Pansy, floating to her and Ginny next, Theo and Astoria afterwards, and finally to Blaise and Draco. What are the stakes against it? Hermione frowned when everyone had completed it. Your magic, Blaise stated.